Hi everyone. Today I'm very excited to welcome Aiste. She is a highly respected name in the food critic industry, and I think it's quite fascinating because she is especially known for her deep expertise and connections with some of Japan's most sought after, extremely difficult to book culinary masters. And her second love, food wise, of course, is for Spain. And she has recently been awarded a very prestigious award for her contributions to the Spanish food scene. And the reason I am interviewing her today is because I am actually deeply inspired by the appreciation and respect you have for the culinary traditions that you write about and promote. And I really think it's incredible the relationships you've built with some of these chefs. And especially, I'd say, in a world that is traditionally male dominated and really difficult for women to penetrate, especially as a foreigner. So, can we start at the very beginning? Um, Welcome.
Thank you so much, Aurea, for having me here. I'm very excited.
I'm very excited. It's going to be a very interesting episode, I think, because a lot of people are fascinated with Japanese food and for all the right reasons. But I don't think so many people know as much about it. I think there's a bit of an asymmetry between
True.
the how popular it is, but the knowledge that people have is quite limited. So, how did you break through the cultural barriers with some of Japan's, I guess, most famous and most renowned masters?
Well, I've been traveling to Japan for 25 years now, so I've been going there since it's really opened for the general public. Because when I went there first to eat, some of the restaurants were not even accepting foreigners to eat to book. and 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 they still actually don't accept many foreigners to book. You have to be introduced, or you have to be introduced by the regular, or you have to know the chef. And I guess I was one of the first bloggers. So I was blogging back then. I was one of the first bloggers to write about these difficult to book restaurants in Japan, which was well over 15 years ago.
And how did you start to build that reputation after you managed to get those books? Well, how did you get those bookings in the first place?
I guess I just tried. And it's very interesting because I know some chefs who uh, they wouldn't even want me to take any pictures of the food or of the restaurant. Nowadays, they travel around the world, they're doing pop ups. And I think it was just breaking the ice.
Yeah, yeah. And then let's go a few years back.
Mm.
Why did you start Luxeat, which is your blogging website on food?
Yeah.
And how did this passion evolve from, I guess, a hobby into a full business now?
So I was modeling in New York City, and blogs just started back then. There was no Instagram. And I started writing about food because I thought it's an interesting way to share my food adventures in New York City with my friends and family back in Europe. And I found out that there are many people like me who love eating, and they travel for food. And they would take a plane just to have one dinner somewhere. So I guess I was one of the first of bloggers in the world, who started writing about food.
Yeah, food specific.
Yeah.
And can we share the name of your blog at the time? I think that's a very good name. I think you have a talent with names, I just realized.
Yes.
Yeah.
So its tagline was "Who said that models don't eat?" Because I just wanted to break that how to say the
Perception,
stereotype,
Yeah.
that all what models eat are salad leaves.
Yeah.
I love my food. I've always enjoyed eating, and I guess we all have different body structures and genetics.
Yeah.
So some of us, can eat. Yeah, can eat. Some of us
Have to be careful.
Yeah, exactly.
And can you tell me about maybe your first or one of the first memorable dining experiences that really kind of set you on this path?
Absolutely. So it was as if it was yesterday. It was at this restaurant called Apicius in Paris. Back then it was in the 17th arrondissement. Now I think it's in the 8th. And I went there for my 19th birthday, and I still remember a dessert called tout caramel. It was just a dessert of different textures of caramel, and it was amazing. I still remember it. And I guess, for a girl from Lithuania, who we didn't have that big restaurant culture there, it was really something that changed my life.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I wish I could taste it now. And I'm thinking about it. Have you ever tried to reproduce it?
No, but I like caramel.
You like caramel? And I know from when we spoke, you mentioned something to me before that I really was so happy to hear. You mentioned that women actually played a very significant role in your journey. Can you share some of the examples of how these women supported you?
So there are so many examples, and I guess I'm a girl's girl. I've always been a girl's girl, and I'm very, very lucky to have wonderful female friends in my life who have supported me. Surprisingly, it was female friends who supported me during the most difficult periods of my life. And yeah, I think I guess I have a not I guess, but I have a huge admiration for my girlfriends, and in a way, all my girlfriends teach me something, and in a way they are better than me, and it's something that they are really someone who I look up to. So yeah, I've been really lucky, and I'm also trying to be mentor to the woman in my life who maybe I can teach something.
Yeah,
I think it's just a beautiful thing to
I think
share.
I think it's an exchange. It's a circle. We receive from certain people and we give to other people.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think it's very lucky and fortunate that you have this. I know most girls, the majority, usually it's not that the experience that they have.
Well, I completely agree. Yeah, I have some girlfriends who don't have girlfriends, and I think it's sad.
It's tough.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they're not all better than you. I'm sure you have
Thank you.
so many things that you kind of inspire them to do as well. It's always an exchange. We're just sometimes not aware of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think so. Yeah, I think so too. That it's an exchange. You give and you receive back. It's
Exactly.
it's the universal law, I think.
Yeah. I don't think it's I think it's almost never a direct exchange, which is the beauty of it. You give, you receive, it comes in different times from different people in different ways.
Absolutely. You don't expect to receive anything. You are just girl's girl, I guess.
I love that. I love girls. I'm all about that.
Yeah.
And you know that because our friends in common is my best friend and a very close friend of yours. And so can we then fast forward to today? What is your job? I just imagine you going around eating amazing food. But what is your job? What do you do exactly?
So I'm a food critic. Yeah. And I organize gastronomic events. And also I do restaurant consulting.
Okay.
I do some headhunting as well.
Oh, fascinating. I mean, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
And what does luxury mean to you? Because obviously the name of your website and your brand now is Luxeat.
Yeah.
So what is luxury for you in gastronomy?
So Luxeat is, of course, it sounds like it's, something about very top-end experience and very
fancy. Yeah.
very fancy. But I guess it's just, it's a play of words. As you say, I like play of words, and I wouldn't mean luxury in the sense that it's expensive or if it's exclusive or unavailable to most of the people. For me, real luxury, and I think, by the way, it has changed luxury, the sense of this, and I think that luxury has, the meaning of luxury has changed a lot over the last 20 years.
Totally.
So it's not about things, owning things. It's more about experiences and creating memories. And for me, first of all, luxury is creating memories. And then I just like telling stories about authentic experiences.
Yeah. You're actually a very beautiful storyteller.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, it makes sense. You write a blog as well, so it's one of your talents. And so what do you look for in a restaurant? Like, what does it take for a chef or a restaurant to make it on your list?
So first of all, I look for authenticity. Whatever it is, whether it's the concept or the ingredients or the chef or his or her story. And also, it might sound very vague, but I'm looking for love in the kitchen. And I would say when it's cooked with love, and again, it's very vague it's a vague concept, but when it's cooked with love, we always know that.
So
And it's
true.
delicious, isn't it?
It's so true. I notice it when I'm stressed out and putting even an omelet together. It doesn't taste good.
Well,
And when I have time and I'm doing it with love, I'm like, but I use the same ingredients.
absolutely.
But it's so true.
And I think, for example, when the chef is not in the kitchen, you can feel that too, So a lot of chefs nowadays, they travel and they have pop-ups all over places. And I think the quality of food suffers a lot when, they travel too much, when they are not in the kitchen. So
Yeah. I mean, I've always heard this expression from a young age that in order for a restaurant to be successful, the chef or the owner needs to be there.
absolutely.
And it's so true. I think it's the single, like, the business where it's a make it or break it.
It's a manual job. It's a hands job. So you have to be there and cook.
Yeah. And
yeah,
it's fascinating.
I couldn't agree with you more, actually.
And how do you handle your relationships with chefs? Let's say you had a bad experience.
But then what happens? And that does happen. So usually, I don't share those experiences on my social media, on my website. It's just my decision. I could be more like I could post all the negative experience too, but I just don't want to have that energy.
Yeah.
And also, I don't want to damage businesses. So I would prefer just not to share about that experience. But what I share about, I really endorse. So I truly believe in that restaurant or that chef's work.
And how does it work? Do you get invited or do you go of your own incentive?
So usually I go in my own incentive. I choose restaurants, I make a research, and I choose the restaurants to go to. Sometimes I get invited, but that's very rare, actually. So
Very rare.
Yeah, very rare.
Okay, that's interesting. I would imagine.
I do get a lot of invitations, but I usually turn down 99%.
Yeah. 99.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is that? Why do you turn them down?
Because maybe it's something that I wouldn't want to post about, So then I just think, I don't want to waste anyone's time.
So you kind of know in advance based on
my research. Exactly. I make a lot of research about each restaurant.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I rely on my network of friends and, foodie friends who share the experiences, because I think that the new restaurant guides, I mean, how to say, the best restaurant guides are people nowadays, word of mouth.
Reliable sources.
Yes.
So I was going to ask you, like, who influences you? What is your source of information? Because obviously you're way ahead of the curve. By the time the general public reads about something, you technically have to have known about it months before.
Yeah. So I'm very happy to have discovered some really nice restaurants this year that no one has really covered yet much. But it's really about, wherever I travel with my stomach. So I make a research. I first research what can I eat, and then I ask around.
Yeah. And I imagine it's a very small world, right? I bet all the chefs kind of know each other. People have a reputation. Because usually you will have worked somewhere else before you start your restaurant, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is a bit of a reputation.
Absolutely.
In that circle.
And I would say it's important to follow, whether it's a journalist, a food critic, or like a Instagrammer or a blogger. It's important to follow those whose taste you trust.
Yeah. And this was a question I was thinking. What happens? I mean, has it happened that sometimes you recommend a place and people don't like it? Because people have different tastes.
Of course, like French say la goût et la couleur,
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, of course, I can't make people like a restaurant if I liked it doesn't matter even if I liked it myself or not. But I think people who follow me, they usually like my taste.
They follow they have a similar, exactly. So what is your experience once you're at the restaurant? What is the reality of your job? Just kind of walk me through it.
Okay. So, well, I guess so. I think there was one question you asked before about when we met about if I enjoy restaurants as much
Yes.
when I go out with friends
Yeah.
as
How has your job
Yeah.
influenced your experience with
Exactly.
dining, especially when it's
Yeah.
friends that invite you?
Yeah. So I guess, I have this curse of my job, because I'm much more critical about everything. And sometimes I just can't, well, in my head, I will not say my friends that, oh, it's terrible. I don't like it. But I guess, you look everything from your professional perspective and you can't enjoy sometimes as much, because you think, oh, this is not that good. This is not that good, and you can't just enjoy the time. And actually restaurants is all about the experience too,
Yeah.
I guess.
And I guess it's not because you're trying to be difficult. It's just because you fine-tuned your senses and
Exactly.
your awareness of everything that you just notice it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the same with wine experts or,
Exactly. Or like a sound engineer that goes into a club. Exactly. Like you just notice these things.
Yeah, you just notice more details than usually people would notice,
Of course.
I guess, I'm I am doomed.
Well, not doomed, but yeah, it's a different lens. And so then what is the reality of the job when you actually go to a restaurant?
So I go to restaurants. So yeah, usually when I I think of posting about it or writing about it, of course I take a lot of pictures and I have to.
And you go by yourself, right?
I go usually by myself.
Because it's work. You're in that focus mode.
Yeah, I often eat alone actually. And then I even enjoy eating alone, so. And then I take pictures, I have to have good light for pictures. And usually natural light is the best.
You take beautiful pictures. So natural light is the best. Does that mean you usually go for lunch?
Yes.
Okay.
Go for lunch. It's another professional,
Tip.
aspect. Yeah, tip. So I usually go for lunch.
Yeah. And then you have time to digest as well. So it's quite nutritious, like healthy.
Yeah.
Healthier.
Absolutely. And usually, Flash never looks nice on food. Unless
Especially
it's
on the white
magazine, otherwise it never looks good and never it never looks appetizing.
No. Yeah, that's
You
very
know what I mean? And then at night, you can't take nice pictures when there is no light at all, So,
yeah.
So usually I choose, so usually I choose the specialty of the chef and the signature dishes.
Okay.
And also things I like, basically.
Yeah. So there is like a set. It's funny that you mention that you often eat alone because I started eating alone for the first time in Japan.
Oh, really?
I was there on a work trip.
Yeah.
And I thought that's the best way for me to just go and sample some places.
Absolutely.
And it's also usually very difficult to book when you're more than one person. So I was happy to just like ignore everyone else and eat alone. And I then started this habit. And now when I have a place in mind, it's last minute, hard to book. I kind of just go for it by myself and it's easier.
Exactly. And usually in Japan, there are some of the best restaurants are counter restaurants. So
Exactly.
it doesn't really matter you are with someone or you just alone because you just look at the show of the chef.
Exactly. And there's even this kind of cubicle, I don't know how to explain it, but you have these separators and it's literally for one person.
It's kind of a meditation also.
Yeah.
You just focus on your food and that's it.
I love eating at the counter. It's one of my favorites. So let's talk about Japan. I actually feel we could do a whole episode just on this topic. You have so much experience, so much knowledge. I'm gonna do my best to ask a few questions, but yeah, you could talk about this for hours. So Japanese cuisine has gained such popularity worldwide, right? And it continuously ranks among the top cuisines in the world. Why do you think that is?
So I think that no other country in the world than Japan has such a soft power of exporting their culture and lifestyle and gastronomy as Japan. So I think they are just doing it really well. And they have this very special aesthetics, that is very based on emptiness and Zen philosophy. Because, for example, if you have a look at the Japanese garden, it's only sand and little stones. There is a lot of space for interpretation, imagination, and, whatever we might project in that space. And I think, well, personally, Japan makes me dream. Whatever I look, I love its art, not only food. I love art, culture, cinema, and I think for many people it's the same because we dream. We travel to this uh, crazy world of mangas, for
Yeah. It's
example.
a very unique
Or
world in mangas, in cinema,
yeah,
and there is a huge following for each type and
huge
subtype
following.
of
It's
culture.
a huge
Yeah,
world of fantasy, and it
yeah,
makes us travel, I guess.
yeah,
And
yeah.
when I started doing my events, with big Japanese masters, uh, I didn't even know that there are such huge fans, from around the world who would fly for those dinners
True.
from around the world.
Yeah, yeah.
So there is a big following, and yeah, it's about the soft power.
It's
No
so
one is
true.
forcing that
Yeah, I never
on
thought
anyone.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And rightly so, the UNESCO recognized Japan cuisine. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. Washoku,
Perfect.
as an intangible cultural heritage in 2013. And this year, my personal favorite, sake.
Yeah.
So sake brewing has also been added to the list. And I think most people know obviously about sushi, tempura, and ramen, but there's so many other different types of cuisine. Can you tell us what are the other ones?
Absolutely. So, actually, Japanese people in Japan, they don't even eat sushi that often. It's quite well, of course, you can have very cheap sushi, in a supermarket, even, just to buy a little box.
Yeah.
But it's quite a high-end experience. It's expensive, actually. So,
Yeah, even in Japan, it's
of
actually,
course,
I think it's even more expensive in some cases.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a special experience, So
yeah.
people don't overindulge with sushi every day. And actually, lots of Japanese food is Japanized, if you can say that, Western food
Mm-hmm.
or Chinese food. So, for example, you mentioned washoku, which
Yeah.
means Japanese, literally Japanese cuisine, because wa is Japanese and is Japanese cuisine. There is also yoshoku, which means Western cuisine that has been made their own.
Okay, so interesting.
So interesting. So actually, what would Japanese people would eat? Like, for example, spaghetti with their own way of spaghetti. It's called Napolitan, and it's like with ketchup and mushroom. Yeah, it's the yoshoku.
Okay.
Then, for example, tonkatsu. I love tonkatsu. It's my
I love it
probably
too.
favorite.
Yeah.
One of the my favorite dishes. So it's just fried pork cutlet.
Yeah.
That probably it might come. Probably it comes from Portugal.
Yeah.
The fried
All the
foods.
fried
All
foods.
the
Yeah.
tempura. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they borrow a lot of dishes from around the world and then they make their own.
Yeah.
And usually what they eat, yeah, really it's not what we think. So a lot of yoshoku dishes. Then as well, soba
Mm.
and you mentioned rice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
I want to ask
yeah,
about rice. First of all, my perception
yeah,
is that Japanese people eat rice
yeah,
for breakfast. Not just in Japan, actually. Other
yeah,
cultures in
yeah.
Asia have rice in Japan. So it's a cultural tradition and there's a practicality aspect. But yeah, why is that? Where
So
does it come from?
yeah, exactly. So first of all, like you just mentioned, it's a staple food in
Yeah.
Japan. So Japan has a perfect climate for rice growing, and they've been eating rice since centuries, I guess. Um, we have to also think, back in the days, people would be working in fields or even in Edo. The how Tokyo used to be called Edo in Edo times. People would have difficult lives, so they would have to cook. They wouldn't have time to cook food for every meal. So they would make one big pot of rice in the morning and then eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Mm.
So the traditional Japanese breakfast is usually salty. I don't know how you call it.
Savory.
Savory breakfast, and it's rice, miso soup, fish usually can be like grilled sea bream or grilled salmon, and it really, actually, I think it's really healthy. I think it's healthier than sweet breakfast we are used to eat here in Europe.
For sure, actually.
And because when you eat rice, it's the food lasts longer for you, in the morning, what you eat in the morning, and then it controls your insulin levels better.
Yes.
So, you don't get this rush of, sugar from early morning, and then,
Yeah, and then you dip.
yeah,
Yeah. Is that when you mentioned the rice, the miso soup, and some fish?
Yeah.
It almost made me think a bit of like the bento box concept.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Japanese cuisine is always about many little dishes.
Yeah, different nutrients.
And it's very important balance. It's very important colors. That's why maybe it's so beautiful and we like it too, because it's presentation is very important in Japan.
Yeah. And as you were talking, it also made me think of how, I mean, some parts of Japan have been studied because they're part of the blue zone where people have the longest lives. And I think a big component of that, obviously there are many aspects, but is the fact that they eat small portions of different things. And I think the way it's laid out and the aesthetics means that you appreciate it and eat it slowly. And all of that contributes to the health aspect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also lots of vegetables. Japanese people eat a lot
And
of
fermented and pickled, which is so healthy for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And can we talk about rice preparations? I know it can take many, many years for
sushi, you mean?
Yeah, for sushi training. And how long does it even take to become a master?
So they say you need like maybe 10 years to
just of rice preparation.
to learn how to make rice, and then you're allowed to touch fish. But I think there is a lot of how to say legends, not legends,
like not folk, but like
no, folk stories.
Yeah.
Because I know that some I read somewhere that some big master in Japan said that women have a higher body temperature. That's why their sushi is not as good as.
Really?
I think so. It's another way of.
I mean, the culture. Let's not forget about it. But there's some really strong cultural.
It's very patriarchal.
It's very patriarchal.
Yeah.
Which is why I think it's really even more to your honor what you've been able to achieve.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. And so you don't think that's true? You don't think it actually needs to be 10 years, or it's not the case anymore?
Well, to be honest, I do think that you have to train many, many years to become a good sushi master.
Yeah.
And I agree. I don't know if you watched Jiro Dreams of Sushi documentary, which you have to watch.
Okay.
You have to watch.
We will link it so anyone who's interested can also
and the master, who is I think now almost 100 years old, he still makes sushi, and he says that he's still learning how to make sushi. So I think it's a lifelong job to make sushi, and like any job, you only get better if you you do it for many years. But of course, I don't think you need so many years maybe to learn that. It depends on how skilled you are, how willing to learn you are, etc. So
maybe it's more a desire to maintain certain traditions and protocols.
Exactly.
But what I think is beautiful about Japanese culture and how, for example, the example you gave where he says he's still learning at age 100, is that there's this deep respect and humbleness, right, for the trade. In every aspect, in calligraphy, in incense making, in ceramics, there's such a deep respect and humbleness for the trade.
Absolutely.
Which we don't find in many cultures.
Well, I would agree with you, and I would, I could comment on that too. So Japanese has this concept of shokunin, and if you translate it, directly, it means artisan. But it's actually much more than that. It's someone who dedicates his life to do one craft and do it better and better and better, and you never learn. You never learn. You still have
It's
so much.
forever evolving.
It's forever evolving, and I think the shokunin spirit is deeply integrated in Japanese society. So whatever they do, they really they are trying. They're putting more efforts than I've noticed somewhere else. People somewhere else. But at the same time, I think there are some amazing artisans in Europe, in Africa, in everywhere, who create magnificent things, and
I agree, but I do think Japanese people have a very specific philosophy and an intention and care that they put into it. And it's really part of a whole set of philosophies of the Japanese
Yeah,
culture, right?
I would say so. Care. You said very well. I think they care a
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah.
about that process.
Yeah.
And
And I think there's even an element of honor, right? In Japan,
absolutely.
if you don't do
Yeah.
something right, it's like an embarrassment to who you are and to your family. So there's this strong concept of I need to do things to my best ability, otherwise
Absolutely.
I'm dishonoring.
Absolutely. And also, for example, keeping your word is very
Yeah.
important, like such little things that I really admire in Japanese culture. If you say something, you do it,
You do it. Yeah.
which is not always, unfortunately, here.
Um, and so you spoke about the artisans, and this is something that I noticed in your work. You really focus. There's a significant importance given to the craftsmanship and the artisan. Can you explain for anyone who's not so familiar with it, such as myself a few weeks ago, what is the difference between an artisan and a chef
So, if we take
in the
would you
culinary
say
world?
in the
Yeah.
culinary
Yeah.
world,
Yeah.
well, in the culinary world, anywhere in the world, not necessarily in Japan, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So chef is someone who has a chef training. It's simple as that. And actually, in Japan, chef is a chef. Usually it means a Western cuisine chef.
Mm-hmm.
Who is not necessarily, doing just one thing.
Yeah.
Does many things.
Yeah. Who oversees the kitchen?
Yeah, who
Yeah.
oversees the kitchen and who might have a training of some, for example, in France, we have Meilleure Ouvrière de France,
Yeah.
So there, I would say they are very close to artisanship too, because
Yeah.
they are doing some, for example, pâté en croûte,
Yeah.
amazingly well,
Yeah. And France has always had this culture of like artisanry, craftsmanship,
Yeah.
also in other aspects of the culture.
Yeah, but I would say artisan and chef, chef does more things, whereas artisan is focused on one like specific
Yeah.
job. So for example, making sushi, you will never see a Japanese, chef in Tokyo making and sushi and I don't know, like
Soba.
pasta or
Yeah.
whatever, you will not have many
Yeah.
different cuisines in one restaurant. It's usually one cuisine in one restaurant,
Yeah. They're specialists.
They're specialists.
Yeah.
They're specializing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you even mentioned to me that you went to a soba noodle demonstration
Yeah.
here in London.
Yes.
So that person was an artisan in noodle making.
In noodle making, all he does is makes noodles since decades.
And a specific type of noodle or many
Soba
noodles.
from
Exactly.
buckwheat.
Yeah.
So it's soba is usually made of buckwheat, and all he does is that, and he's just the chef was so amazing. He said, yeah, I did a test just a few days before the demonstration, and the water was not right at all, and the soba fell apart. The dough fell apart, and then he bought, Evian, like or like water from a bottle,
Yeah.
and he did the right, he got the right texture.
Yeah.
But
it's a whole other world.
it's a whole other
pH level of the water, the temperature,
yeah.
where the rice comes from, when it's served. There's just so much that goes into it
So much that goes into it.
when you're mastering it.
Exactly. And as you say, it's a whole another world, and it's their whole world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they live by that.
exactly.
So, what is the culinary pilgrimage that you would advise for someone who wants to go there for the first time? And how long should they stay?
Well, there is jet lag, so
Yeah,
as long as you can. I think 2 weeks is good.
I would say it's the minimum, right?
It's the minimum, because especially for the first time, because I think that what people often underestimate is jet lag.
True.
And also, I would say they overbook too many places. They do 2 fine dining meals per day, and it's just too much in Japan, because the meals last long usually, and you have to, think of, that you will be also tired and jet lagged. So
Yeah.
often I hear that, the foreigners, people who come to Japan, they try to cancel, last minute,
And
which
it's so disrespectful.
it doesn't work. You can't cancel last minute, in Japan.
So the dues book one per day.
Yeah.
And also there's amazing street food. So you can
Absolutely.
always, if you have a bit of a a craving or you're hungry, you can grab something.
Absolutely. And I don't think we have to focus only on all these like temples, because they are of course amazing, but there are so many restaurants, and even if you go to a place that is easy to book, it will be most likely better than anything else here.
Here, yeah.
And even like an egg sandwich in 7-Eleven supermarket, they call it combini,
Yeah.
these shops where you can buy everything. It's amazing.
The egg sandwich, there's inside. And I don't know how the egg holds in one place, because there's this much and you bite into it and nothing moves. And it's so good.
It's just so good. So, I mean, just be open-minded and don't overbook too many places, and, just dive into the culture,
Yeah. And so definitely Tokyo.
Definitely Tokyo, Kyoto,
Yeah.
for sure. Osaka.
Yes.
Then I mean, I loved Fukuoka as well, and now recently I discovered Hokkaido, which for me it was such a great discovery. I love it, and I want to come back.
Yeah.
So
is it an island? Is it on the beach?
On the north, in the north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the best places to eat Japanese food outside of Japan that you've experienced?
So I would say it's where there is historically a lot of Japanese community.
Yeah.
And also it's about the ingredients availability. So I think the
That makes sense.
Japanese cuisine I've had outside of Japan was in New York or Los Angeles. Of course, in London and Paris, we also have great Japanese cuisine. But sometimes, because of the regulations, chefs can't get the best seafood from Japan, for example. We have no right to import some of the seafood, so it's just not the same, as in Japan, let's say. Or in New York, where some of the best restaurants, they literally can get overnight shipments from Toyosu Market from Tokyo, and they serve that food next day.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That
Well, of
makes a
course,
lot of sense.
it has a price for that,
Yeah, of course.
Nowadays, it's become kind of out of proportion, also.
And it just made me think as well of the fish markets in Japan, where you can go and just have the best fresh fish.
Yeah.
Rolled and prepared right in front of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But even in they call it the pato, department stores, where they have this amazing, mind-blowing food halls,
Yes,
and
yes.
you buy last time I bought like sushi for, I don't know, if you translate into pounds, maybe for 8 pounds, was very nice selection of fish. It was so great, and so delicious and so fresh. So I think it's about, often I think in Japan, it's because of course in Europe, we do have great ingredients.
Yeah.
But it's about handling the fish, and how and handling the fish means it's from the moment it's caught, it has to be handled right, and I think in this chain, we sometimes lose the quality because it's not handled well.
So the fish can be of good quality, but
Yeah,
because of the way it's handled, it kind of loses. And what does that mean? You have to prepare it quickly, or you have to preserve it? What does
So
the handling?
they usually, they use this fish butchering technique as ikejime, where you put a Y in the spine, and it's actually more humane also to butcher fish.
Okay.
And it remains fresher for a longer time.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It's called ikejime.
Ikejime, okay. And so what tips do you have for those who want to experience these high quality restaurants, but they can't necessarily afford it? And I think you've already touched upon this, that it's not always about the restaurant, it's about the quality.
Actually, I completely agree with you. And also, I think it's just be curious, and don't be afraid to, to go extra mile to get nice ingredients, and I often travel to another part of London or Paris for my ingredients, so like, I think good ingredients is very important, and already a big job done to eat well,
It's the first step.
It's the first step.
Yeah. So you can start at home.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't need to go to a restaurant. And, nowadays in London, there are some, amazing fish shops where you can buy better quality fish than in restaurants, where you pay a premium. Yeah. So honestly, you can eat very well at home. And for example, I do that often with my son and with friends, like we do temaki parties, tamaki is a hand roll. And it's something very easy to make. You just cut the fish, you have nice nori, seaweed, rice, you make a rice. You can have a nice, make a nice rice with a rice cooker nowadays, and that's it. You're done, and it's fun.
That sounds fun. I think the first time I tried to make rolls, I was 18 with a friend who organized I guess a temaki party. I haven't tried it since then. Now I want to talk about Spain. So Spain is the second country that has caught your heart food-wise. And actually, I think my first experience of really falling in love with or discovering something completely different from what I knew is when I traveled to Barcelona and Madrid maybe 15 years ago. I was so mind blown by the not the chicken not the tapas, but when there's yes,
Pinchos, yeah.
I was so fascinated also by the diversity, and you can try so many things, which I love because I can never decide what to have, so I try everything. So you were recently awarded for your contributions to gastronomy in Spain. Can you tell me more about this passion that you have, because it's quite different from Japanese?
It's very different. It's very different, but at the same time, I think there are a lot of similarities. So my first event when I brought big masters from Japan was in Ibiza, actually. And I was walking in Ibiza market one day, and I was thinking, what would happen if these big masters from Japan would cook from these amazing, freshly caught ingredients from Ibiza market.
Yeah, they have amazing
ingredients. It's just, again, it's half job done. You just get the ingredients and you don't have to go to restaurant, actually. And I think first of all, Spanish, they take the food very seriously.
Yes.
Which I think is great.
Yeah, they take it seriously, but they're definitely less serious than in Japan.
Oh yeah, they are much.
Yeah, there's more of a fun element to it.
And maybe place for interpretation. And also, I'm a big fan of actually ingredients, good ingredients, and pure cooking. I don't like too much. Let's say I like when the ingredient shines, and it's respected. And I think in Spain, what they do is very ingredient focused. You can just have amazing gamba roja,
I was just gonna say that. I was thinking that as you were talking.
I could eat, you can eat it even raw,
Yeah,
or I don't know, like a good chuletón, good steak.
Yeah.
And it's just very simple, and it's often, you don't need anything else, you just have a beautiful ingredient, perfectly prepared, and that's it, and even fine dining in Spain, for me, I prefer something simple and, from great ingredients.
And can we talk about the Donostia region? I'm very curious about it because, the Basque region, because it's really become a huge destination for foodies. Why is that?
Well, another good question. I would say Basque, first of all, were the first who had this. So in France, there was, Nouvelle Cuisine, that was born in Lyon and everywhere, around there. And in Basque, it was in Spain, it was in Basque. And some of the biggest chefs, like the most respected chefs, like Arzac, for example, come from Basque country. So I think the food culture and gastronomy is deeply embedded in the Basque society. But I think, if Spanish take their food seriously, Basque, they bring it to next level.
Yeah. And so you do recommend it?
Oh, absolutely. So for me, some of the favorite activities, eating activities in Basque is pinchos, of course, So there's nothing better than in San Sebastian, you walk around the pinchos bars, you take one or two in one bar, another, one or two in another, and you have a full meal,
You go from one place to another.
Yes, and it's very social, You meet people.
It's very easy.
Yeah, easy. You chat, and you have a drink,
Yeah. First of all, what are the trends in gastronomy that you're seeing, and where do you see things going?
So I would say there is I've noticed a lot that there is more and more vegetarian dishes in the tasting menus, I would say. And there is this environmental consciousness, that I've noticed, happening more and more in the restaurants, like zero waste, or even, like wine pairing is replaced sometimes with non-alcoholic options, you know. So I would say these are the trends, but at the same time, there are like since quite a few years now, the trend of this convivial, traditional, old school meal where you sit down and you have this hearty dishes that brings heart to
A sense of home.
sense of home that brings joy not only to your stomach but also heart, you know.
Yeah.
And
I just thought of something when you were talking about the non-alcoholic pairings. I was very lucky to be able to go to Central in
nice.
Lima this summer, and we intentionally chose to do one wine pairing and one non-alcoholic. And I'm so glad we did, because the non-alcoholic was so creative, so interesting, flavors and textures, and I don't even know how to explain it, but the thought process that would have gone into developing that alone, and like the fermentations and the natural extracts and liqueurs, and all obviously from Peruvian ingredients. So some of the things, I don't even know the name or the spice, or like I don't even know what it is. I don't know if it's a herb, a vegetable, or a spice. And I was mind blown. So I think definitely for people that go to really creative places, it's worth trying.
Absolutely. And actually you have to put a lot of more thought and work into, you know, for example, vegetarian dishes. There is so much work. I've seen a lady who was cooking a vegetarian dinner at a party. She put so much work, you know, into that, and
it's more difficult. It's easier to rely on the protein,
Exactly.
main ingredients, and to build the things around it than to have to craft the whole thing. And what plans do you have for the future of Luxeat?
So actually I'm launching my restaurant guide.
Yay!
I've been working finally. I've been working it for the last few months, maybe even half a year.
And it will save you so much time, because I imagine people are always reaching out to you asking for recommendations.
And for the nice thing that people can just go to my website and it will be my recommendations, which I'm planning to launch in the beginning of next year.
How exciting. It's for the women who really don't fit in a box, and actually they never wanted to. So if this sounds like you, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and of course, hit play.